Okay. My name is Patrick Pendleton Smith, Development Manager with the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, the agency also known as DEMPED, unless you're Patrick Nelson. Patrick, what do you call us? Okay, fine. I am being assisted this evening by Alex Feynman, Jonathan Mueller, Richard Scarth, Daniel Lyons is online, I believe. I believe Whitney Smith is also online, also DEMPED, and we are joined by Esther Ezra, DEMPED Deputy Director of Real Estate. Please note that this disposition hearing is being recorded. Additionally, I would like to thank Ward 1 Councilmember Brianne Nadeau, ANC 1B Chair Sable Harris, ANC 1B Vice Chair and Chair of the Economic Development Committee, Larry Handerhan, who is joining us virtually this evening. He has tested positive for COVID. I hope, Larry, you don't mind I've shared that. And all the other ANC 1B commissioners for their assistance and continued public input. Thank you for taking time out of your schedules to be here tonight and listen to my scripted conversation. Meeting purpose and district disposition process. Under DC Code 10801, the mayor's office, before proceeding to negotiate the disposition of real property, shall hold at least one public hearing to obtain community comments on the proposed use of the property, which is the purpose of tonight's meeting. Tonight, on behalf of the executive office of the mayor, we are holding this public hearing to obtain community comments on the proposed use of the real property at 2014th Street, also designated as lots 0844 and square 0204. Tonight, there are two development teams who will present proposed uses for the property. The presentations will each be no more than 15 minutes in length. We will hear from both teams prior to receiving comments. Please hold your comments regarding the proposed uses until after the final presentation of the second team, when we will take comments with both development teams present. For those attending in person and who would like to make comments, please sign up on the comment sign-up sheet that's currently located at the back of the room and will be available for sign-up for the duration of the hearing. If you are attending virtually and would like to make comments after the presentations on the proposed uses, please ensure you use the raised hand function within the WebEx program. I will attempt to explain how to raise your hand at a later time. Let me provide a brief background on the site itself. The property is located in Ward 1, ANC 1B, SMD 12, and is comprised of lot 0844 and square 0204. The property is bounded by V Street Northwest to the north, 14th Street Northwest to the east, and U Street Northwest to the south. The property is located one block west of the U Street African American Civil War Memorial Cordoza Metro Stop western entrance. The property is currently improved by the Frank D. Reeves Center of Municipal Affairs upon lot 0844 and encumbered by air rights parcel lot number 7000. The intention of today's hearing is to focus on the proposed uses of the property and receive comments on those uses. So we will see in no particular order the two presentations for proposed uses of the property. After the final presentation, both teams will be present for the public comment section of this hearing. For those wishing to provide comments regarding the proposed use of the property, we will be alternating between in-person attendees who will come up to this microphone for their comments and virtual attendees who will and we will be able to hear them hopefully through WebEx. I ask those here in person who desire to make comments to, again, please sign up on the comment sign-up sheet. It's currently at the back of the room. For those attending virtually, you will be recognized by using the raised hand feature of WebEx. Each person offering comments will have a total of 2 minutes to deliver comments. If commentary exceeds 2 minutes, the commenter will be asked to immediately finish, and we kindly request that a written version be submitted to our office via email so that we may fully capture the intended comment. Please focus your comments on the proposed use of the property. The concept of uses includes such examples as ground floor retail use, residential use, commercial office space use. When beginning your remarks, please state your name and association. For example, if you are an ANC member, a resident from one of the neighborhoods, etc. Comments may also be emailed to me at patrick.smith3@dc.gov. Note the number 3 after my last name, Smith, and will be accepted regarding this hearing through February 10th, 2023. We will now begin the presentations. Would CMC Ventures please come up?
Thank you, Patrick. Okay.
30 seconds before.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Esther, all of the DEMPED representatives, Councilmember Nadeau, members of ANC 1B, and the community. My name is Simone Goring-Devaney, and I am co-founder and managing principal of CSG Urban Partners. It is my great honor to be here this evening to present the Reeves CMC Ventures proposal for the transformation of the Reeves Center. With me this evening, I have my partner, Charles King. Also, we have our partner in the development team, Quentin Primo, who is founder and executive chairman of, Capri Investment Group. We also have Matt Robinson with MRP. We have our design team represented by Michael Marshall with Michael Marshall Design, Sean Pichon with PNC Architects, and Sharon Bradley with Bradley Site Design. Next slide. So we are excited to be here to present our vision for the transformation of the Reeves Center. We are going to create a living heritage respectful of the U Street history, especially its significance to Black culture, enterprise, identity, and especially its ties to civic activism. Our proposal supports the longstanding Office of Planning Duke Plan, which anybody that's been around probably remembers. The Duke Plan was created many, many years ago. By embracing the idea of development opportunities that are clear expressions and celebrations of the heritage of African American arts and education through programming in urban design, our vision for the reimagined Frank D. Reeves Center will act as the western anchor of the U Street corridor, connecting the eastern end with the Howard University, Howard Theater, Ellington Plaza, historically known as the Black Broadway. We are proposing a nearly 550,000 square foot development that will be home to 108,000 square feet of Class A office space split between the NAACP and DC agencies. We will have approximately 322 units of mixed income housing, a 116-key residential hotel with modern design, larger rooms, and unrivaled comfort. We'll also have 44,000 square feet of arts and education, including new homes for local art schools and dance schools, the Viva School, the Washington Jazz Arts Institute, and the Christian Tabernacle Development Center. We're also really excited that we're going to be providing 22,500 square feet of retail, including a new restaurant concept by Top Chef Carla Hall and DC's own Dave Chappelle Comedy Club that will provide a home for not only Dave when he's in town, but for other comedians and entertainers. We'll also provide a 17,000 square foot Frederick Douglass Plaza and a 200-seat Marion Barry Amphitheater. Next slide. So you can see from this site plan, our ground floor is very activated. You can see from the public realm diagram, in the center of our development, there will be the Frederick Douglass Plaza, which is in the yellow. We will have our arts, retail, and office connected office space off of the Frederick Douglass Plaza. The Viva School will have an entrance on U Street. The office lobby will have an entrance on U Street. The Marion Barry Jr. Amphitheater will be in the middle of the Frederick Douglass Plaza. We'll have retail along both U Street and 14th Street. We'll have multiple accesses on the corner of 14th and U and also on V Street. We'll have parking access, and the loading dock will be along V Street, very close to where the entrance is required to be. We'll have the residential lobby will be along V Street, and we'll have the hotel lobby will be along the corner of, or at the corner of 14th and 14th and V Street. We'll have retail along 14th Street, and the Ailey School of Dance will have its studios, which will be illuminated and be able to be seen. You'll be able to see the dancers in the evening and all day along 14th Street. Next slide. So this is a rendering of what our courtyard will look like when it's activated. And you can see the Viva School will have an entrance on U Street and will be another source of activation of the site. Next slide. This is our residential unit mix. We will have 322 mixed income residential units, 24 studios, 129 junior one bedrooms, a mix of one bedrooms and den, 35 two bedrooms, and 3 3-bedroom family size units. And we will have at a minimum the amount of affordable housing that's required to adhere to DC Code 10801. Next slide. So we are very excited about the opportunity to have the NAACP's new national headquarters as part of our Reeves concept. The members of our team collectively share the NAACP's vision to ensure a society in which all individuals have equal rights and there is no racial hatred or racial discrimination. We have met with President Johnson several times, and we anticipate the NAACP being a full member of our development team. As you can see the quote from President Johnson, he says the NAACP will be a true equity and development partner. We are not looking for charity, so they will play an active part in our redevelopment. Also, we will partner with them to help them achieve the goals of their centering equity in the sustainable building sector initiative and their living building design challenge. Next slide. So one of the things we're most excited about is our arts and education partners. As I indicated, we'll be providing permanent homes for the Viva School and Washington Jazz Arts Institute. Those are both two long-term U Street arts organizations. The Viva School is a school that provides pre-professional dance training and eliminates barriers of access to high-level dance students. And it's currently located along the U Street corridor, but they are looking for a permanent home, a forever home. Also, the Washington Jazz Arts Institute used to be located along U Street at Bohemian Caverns, and unfortunately they have relocated. And we're really excited to have the Washington Jazz Arts Institute as part of our team. Davey, Mr. Sax Yarborough, who is an amazing saxophone player. He's also a long-term teacher at Duke Ellington. He sent us a video of him with some of his students, and it was just so heartwarming, like the impact that having early arts and education and music training can have in a young person's life. We'll also be providing a home for Christian Tabernacle Child Development Center. Christian Tabernacle is located at 11th and V Street Northwest. We've been working with Pastor Hart for many years to help him with the redevelopment of his site at that location. So he's looking for a relocation site. He's recently rebranded his Child Development Center as the Love First Child Development Center. So we're excited to have all of those uses. And we'll be bringing the Ailey School, which will be having a new satellite location at the Reeves Center. And they're really excited to come to Washington, D.C. and look forward to collaborating with Viva, the Viva School, the Washington Jazz Arts Institute, and all the other local arts, music, and dance programs. Next slide. So our community and district benefits will include our focus on arts, youth, and education. We think it's so important. We think it also fulfills some of the goals and objectives of the Duke Plan and the comprehensive plan. We will provide destination design and programming. As I said, we're going to have the 24,000 square foot Douglas Plaza, which will be surrounded by restaurants and retail and will really activate the location and the site. We'll have the 200-seat Marion Barry Amphitheater for performance by area artists and lecturers. We'll have the Dave Chappelle Comedy Club, and we will have a design that is worthy of the District of Columbia and the location, and will provide timeless architecture. Minority business formation is a cornerstone of our proposal, and we look forward to partnering with Think Local First DC, who is an advocate for small local businesses. Diversity, equity, inclusion is another cornerstone of our team. Our team embodies the principles and the practices of diversity, equity, inclusion, and we look forward to providing opportunities for Ward 1 businesses. All of our firms have a rich heritage in the struggle for inclusions, and we look forward to being able to help other businesses to grow and thrive. Next slide. So our development team is comprised of CSG Urban Partners, Capri Investment Group, and MRP Realty. We all have experience doing large, complex, mixed-use, public-private development projects, and have done many projects in the District of Columbia and in this community. Next slide. So our design and engineering team is all minority and women-owned firms, in addition to our nonprofit partners, which have an average of about 75 years providing services in Washington, D.C. They are in the community, of the community, and for the community. And you'll notice the picture on the right is the original construction for the original Reeves Center, and it was undertaken by Smoot Construction, and Smoot will be our general contractor. So we're really excited to have them to be part of our development project. Next slide. So what sets us apart? Art, youth, and education is the cornerstone of our project. It is a monumental development project worthy of the District of Columbia and the Reeves Center location and Frank D. Reeves. It implements the district's Duke framework to create cultural destinations for the Greater Shaw Cardoza and 14th and U Street corridors. Our plaza and amphitheater will activate the site, supporting existing and future businesses, and bring back the Black Broadway. We'll provide visitors with a residential hotel with larger spaces for longer stays with friends and family in the community. And we will achieve social equity by maximizing minority ownership and participation in the project. So thank you very much for the opportunity to present this evening, and we look forward to answering any questions from the community or the ANC this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would the team of Legacy Community Partners, the presenter, please come up?
All right. That's when the panic begins. Got it. Good evening, everyone. Everyone hear me? Thank you. Thank you for being here this evening. Looking forward to the opportunity to tell you about our plans for the Reeves site. I'm Corey Powell. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Dante's Partners. I have the pleasure of sharing our team's vision for Reeves. Our proposal builds on a rich African-American and cultural history at this site and in this neighborhood. And the firms that have come together to put this plan together are focused on that, and those are the hallmarks of our site, of our plan, excuse me. Next slide. Legacy Community Partners is comprised of Black, brown, and women-owned firms that have developed and financed over $3.2 billion of real estate assets. The team is led by the master developer and residential developer, Dante's Partners, which is a 17-year-old company based here in Washington, D.C. It's 100% Black owned, that focuses on the creation and preservation of affordable housing and doing what we call luxury affordable housing. We have financed over $2 billion of assets representing 7,000 units up and down the East Coast between New York City, Washington, D.C., which is our home. It has been our home throughout the history of the firm, and Virginia. The McKinney Group, which is nearly a 20-year-old business based here in D.C. that employs over 1,000 individuals, if I have that correct, based here in D.C., has assisted over 2,000 families in purchasing their home, and they have invested over $350 million in emerging neighborhoods with a focus on primarily commercial, office, and retail assets, representing over 3 million square feet of space. They are currently delivering on the first phase of the MLK Gateway site in the southeast quadrant in Anacostia, and are currently working on phase 2, amongst other things. EB5 Capital, led by Angel Brunner, it's a 15-year-old Black woman-owned firm with over $900 million in commercial real estate investment, delivering 13 hotel projects. They will lead the hotel development aspect of the project in partnership with Baywood Hotels. And again, I reiterate, or I should mention, the McKinney Group will lead the office component of the project. And lastly, NAACP, who will occupy half of the office space that we're proposing, will also be an investor and owner in both the hotel and the office components of the project going forward. And lastly, I should not fail to mention that Soto Architecture is our lead architecture firm here, led by Fernando Verde Soto, who's here with us today. So thank you for showing up, Fernando. Next slide, please. So our proposal is comprised of multiple uses. So multi-use site comprised of residential, a hotel use, an office use, retail, cultural amenities, including art space and outdoor public space for use by the general public, as well as the users of the site. There's a 180 key Moxie Hotel that will be delivered along the U Street corridor. The left-hand portion of the site. Next to that will be a 100,000 square feet office space that will be occupied partially by the NAACP and also occupied by district agencies. There will be 2 residential buildings comprising approximately 300 units, multifamily and senior rental and for sale units. There'll be a retail plaza that faces both an inner courtyard as well as facing U Street and 14th Street. That will include an 8,500 square foot food hall that we will use as an opportunity to create jobs. There will be a partnership with DC Central Kitchen within the ground floor of the office space. They will operate the cafe space there and also use that as a training ground for individuals that they assist. And Constellation Theater Company will be coming back to the site as well. And then within the ground floor of the hotel space, Songbird Theater Company, which currently operates out of Adams Morgan, will have space in that building as well. And those partnerships are key with Songbird and Constellation Theater Company and DC Central Kitchen alike to create an active space where people can live, work, play 24 hours a day at this site. Our layout for this site is generated by the ideals of our companies. Where our focus is on empowering local Black and brown businesses, economic development from a job creation standpoint, housing for all people, including affordable housing, and design solutions that are rooted in the community. Next slide. So this is the residential component of the site, the first of 2 multifamily buildings. There will be 2, the Berry and the Zora. This is an image of of the Berry, which is approximately 250 units, and will also include 4 live-work units that will be for sale units within the community. There's also the Zora, which will include units for seniors, as well as 3 for sale units. You have the breakdown on the screen of the various unit types. There will be 16 studios, 193 one-bedroom units, 72 two-bedrooms, and 19 three-bedrooms. We focused on creating diverse unit types throughout the project. This is a mixed income community. We will in fact meet the requirements of DC Code 10801, and would invite folks to come see any of the projects that Dante's Partners has recently delivered to get a sense of the type of housing that it is that we focus on creating. Next slide, please. This is an image of the Zora, and again, to emphasize across the site, there will be 7 homeownership opportunities. Next slide, please. When we talk about meeting 10801, we are focused as firms on creating diverse housing types and thinking through the different individuals at varying income levels who may be able to occupy a site, all the way from police officers all the way to bartenders. So it could be the folks that are actually working at the site that have the opportunity to live here and draw broadly throughout the community. Next slide, please. It's an image of the proposed Moxie Hotel. Again, we're anticipating that it will max out at about 180 keys. It's a lively site for the U Street corridor, so we'll connect the activity that's already happening there. We are, by building at this scale, we're able to maximize the number of rooms here while also maximizing the uses that we can use across the site outside of the hotel use. And again, there will be the Songbird music company that will be located in the ground floor of this building as well. Next slide. This is the new office that we're proposing for the site. That will be the new home of the NAACP. Again, half of that site will be dedicated to the NAACP. They will also be a partial owner in that site, with the balance of the spaces dedicated to other district government agencies. Next slide. We're also focused on opening up what's been basically a super block and making it accessible from multiple points within the community. Marion Barry Square, which will be a centerpiece within the block, will be an active space with arts. All of the uses that are on the ground floor will sort of feed into that to create a tremendous amount of energy in that space. We are sort of pulling on the Black Broadway history of this site to make sure all the uses have a central point of focus. There's going to be an 8,500 square foot food hall that feeds onto this space that will support 13 plus businesses. Constellation Theater and Arts Company will be here. We have worked out where we will be in a position to allow a farmer's market to operate here. And there's also an amphitheater that we'll get to momentarily. Next slide, please. I talked about resale opportunities at the site. So here's a diagram that sort of shows how that is laid out relative to the site. You have U Street at the bottom of the image, and 14th Street to the right, with V Street to the top of the site. DC Central Kitchen, again, will be in the ground floor of the office space. Songbird will have 2,600 square feet within the Moxie Hotel space. There'll be another 6,000 square feet of retail, 8,500 square foot food hall. Constellation Theater Company, which will operate at the corner of the site along the amphitheater. And we're bringing back some of the existing uses that are there currently, including USPS. Next slide, please. The parking, which somehow is wagging the dog given its complications on this site will be accessed off of V Street. There'll be approximately 150 parking spaces on the site. All of the loading and unloading will happen within the parking garage underground. So none of that will happen above ground to inconvenience anyone passing by. We are, to the extent possible, utilizing the existing structure that is there to preserve its structural integrity. And again, that entrance will be off of V Street, the least busy of all of the streets along the site. Next slide. From a community benefit standpoint, I mentioned DC Central Kitchen. So in addition to providing a use within the office, they're also educators, and will have basically a laboratory where they will have an opportunity for their air quote students to execute on what it is that they've been able to learn and grow the next generation of chefs in DC. The farmers market, which will come back to the site in many of the active public spaces. Activities for individuals of all ages across the site. We plan to bring the DC Funk Parade back to this location once it opens. There's a focus for us on growing Ward 1 businesses. You've got a lot of folks that are homegrown on this site. So it's very important for us to use real estate assets to do that going forward. And then Constellation Theater Company, which is also coming back to emphasize the rich cultural history of this site as well. Next slide. Next slide. Excuse me. In addition to a commitment to Black and Brown businesses, we also are committed to local businesses. 50% of our participants will be minorities. Our CBE participation is expected to more than double what is required, and the NAACP will be a significant owner in the site. Next slide. So why us? Big things for us are its diversity at the site beyond checking a box. You've got a hyper local team that has worked here and all grew up here. We are activating public space, and there's a significant amount of civic engagement given the history of this site. We see real estate as a key economic tool, and it's a pathway to opportunity as we're doing that in multiple instances. And our team is rooted in this community. Our plan is really informed by what we've heard, what we know about the site, people we've talked to, and engagement throughout the process. And the Legacy Community Partners team is proud to present our vision to you and open to taking any questions. So thank you.
I have notes. Thank you to both teams for the presentations and running through your uses proposed for the sites. The floor is going to be opened up for public comments. I'm going to call upon those people who signed up on the comment sheet and alternate between in-person and virtual attendees via the raise hand function. For those virtual attendees unable to utilize the microphone function of the computer, you may enter a written comment in WebEx through the WebEx Q&A function. Please try not to use the chat function for entering comments. I will now try to describe how to raise your hand if you're virtual. Hopefully up on the screen, you will see a little raised hand icon. If you don't see a little raised hand icon, there might be 3 dots in the corner or in your screen that if you punch, will bring it up. Now for Q&A, you will also look for those little 3 dots somewhere on your screen. You will use your mouse to click on them, and then hopefully it will bring up the Q&A box. You'll see the Q&A, one more slide. Select Q&A, and then it should bring up the Q&A, and you can type comments into the box. If you're on a telephone, I believe there should be on the bottom of the screen a little 3 dots with on the bottom. You would press that. You would look for a little raised hand icon on the left-hand side of your screen, and once you press that, you should show up with a raised hand. WebEx has a lot of involvement with three little dots and then trying to figure out where everything is. As a reminder, please try to keep your comments focused on the proposed use of the property. If you have prepared written comments, please email the written comments directly to me, patrick.smith3@dc.gov. However, prior to calling on members of the general public, I would like to invite the council member or any ANC 1B commissioners present to the microphone. Are there any ANC commissioners present who would like to start us off? Oh, yes. Oh, welcome. No comment. Okay. So you're going on the record with no comment. Yes, okay. All right. I'm going to go back. Would my assistant please bring up the clipboard? Thank you. All right. Our first in-person commenter is Patrick Nelson. Would you please come up to the microphone? If the presenters from the teams would like to be up here to be able to access the microphone quickly, please feel free. That would be Simone and Corey. If you want to be available in case a question is directed to you and need to clarify something.
Good evening, everybody. I have a whole bunch of questions, but I'm going to only ask a couple. My first question is actually to you, Patrick. Is it the city's position that it's going to pick one or the other of these teams? Is that how this is working?
Yes, there are two proposals currently submitted for the RFP. Of those, we would be choosing one of the two proposals.
Okay. So then my next question really just is a general question to both teams. You've got a number of different venue things, dance studios and all of those things that you talked about, the DC Central Kitchen and all that. Is that just something that you guys envision doing, or have you signed letters of intent with all of those groups so that once this gets picked, whoever gets done, it's a done deal that you're going to do those? The latter. Okay. And then my last question is in particular to housing. Your plan has three, right, but only three bedrooms, and his plan has 19, I think I saw. I didn't see on any one of your slides how that breaks down as far as affordability.
So regarding affordable housing, any residential use for the development is required by DC Code 10801 to provide at least 30% of the units as affordable housing. However, we are not at the point in the disposition process where we have determined the total amount of affordable housing a development program can support or provide above the required 30%. When legislation is introduced to council later in the process, which includes another opportunity for public comment, an affordable housing plan will be included at that time, outlining the anticipated amount and breakdown of affordable housing. We will now hear from an online commenter.
Santiago, you've been unmuted. Please state your name for the record.
Hello, can you hear me?
Can you turn it up?
Are you able to hear me now?
We're able to hear you. It's just very soft. One moment, please. Keep talking.
One second.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right. Hello, my name is Santiago Lactos. I'm a commissioner in ANC 1B04. Was around for the community process around the initial RFP. I would echo Patrick Nelson's question about unit income breakdown. I understand what might be the technical situation at this point. I would recommend finding that out and sharing it as soon as possible because that's the biggest question we get about this. I have two specific questions, one for Legacy and one for Reeves CMC. For Legacy, I noticed it said you have 193 one bedrooms. Are those all true one bedrooms or are they junior one bedrooms? And for Reeves CMC, the question is about the hotel. Is that a is the plan to be a hotel, or is this sort of, I've seen these concepts where it's like longer stay corporate apartments that like, or like maybe like a 30-day minimum turns into like a large scale Airbnb style situation. I'm just trying to understand whether that's part of the plan. Yeah, those are my questions. Thank you.
Sure. For the legacy team, the 1 bedrooms are true 1 bedrooms.
Reeves, the hotel is proposed to be a residential hotel. It's not to be master leased for, corporate uses for 30 days. It'll be I don't know if you've heard of the firm Sander or Placemaker. They'll be more like apartment units. So they would really work well for, I know I've heard a lot when we've talked to the community about, because many people in the community live in smaller studios and 1 bedrooms. And when family members friends come to visit, there's no place close by. So we thought it would be a great concept to provide larger spaces for family and friends when they came to visit. And we'll also be activating the site with the comedy club, Carla Hall's restaurant concept. So that's what our concept is for the hotel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will be doing the next in person. And by the way, I've just been corrected. The Reeves Center it has been redistricted into SMD 07 out of district single member district 12. So I apologize. And there is no longer a 12. And with that, would Commissioner Kensick please come up?
Good evening. First off, great job presenting. I think it's a very exciting time for this era to come in forth, just like they did in the 80s, to now start bringing back the U Street area as what's much needed. A couple of questions that my constituents have asked me is just constantly about parking. I know I beat a drum with that. I know in the second plan you talk about 100 and something spots. I know the current Reeves Center holds, I believe, more than that, what's existing. As your first plan, I didn't see any parking spots at all in your plan. So I wanted to see what that is about. Secondly, with your plan, on the left, I apologize. You had mentioned about having loading, like a loading dock on B Street. That to me seems to be a little problematic. And the reason I say that is we are constantly having issues with V Street and backup traffic. There's a school that's right there that gets out, and a lot of the parents, I know they're not supposed to, but love to double and triple park. So it constantly leaves people in areas where they're just kind of, backed up. So that's something I would look to possibly where you have the underground, I think would be a lot better of a flow. And lastly, I just really want to get across that affordable housing is key. I know that everyone can say affordable housing, and who really determines it, but I do believe that it's been, not acknowledged as much here. I know that Commissioner Harris has worked with a great 1250 U Street, which is going to have 106 units, have some, lower income housing units. I just want to make sure that you guys as well are planning on doing that, or possibly even looking to increase those efforts, because it's needed. A lot of the bartenders, the servers, whomever around the area, they're finding themselves going out to Maryland or Virginia or like some other area in Ward 8 or 7, and it's not really conducive to their needs. So I just think that really needs to be, thought of and in favor of. And lastly, I'll add, I just think that it's great, again, that you guys are doing this. It's really exciting. I think that this is going to build a future for a very long time. Having the NAACP, that's amazing, and it goes with the roots of Washington, D.C. For the people. And lastly, I just think that the reason why I'm first was almost against having a hotel, but as I'm thinking more about it and speaking to some of the mayor's team and also just local businesses, what I want is I see that it'll bring businesses back between the hours of 11 to 3, because a lot of you guys, if you know in the area, they're opening only at 5 because there's not, no business inflow. So I do like that idea, and that's all I have. Thank you.
No.
He had the parking for CMC, which was how much parking are you providing?
We're providing 366 parking spaces because we want to minimize the impact of the project, obviously, to the community, given the challenge with parking as it is now.
You can remind them how many parking spaces you are providing.
It's 147 parking spaces, but primarily driven by, they're all underground. Is primarily driven by the fact that we've got loading and all the other functions within the garage as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. We'll take an online.
David, you've been unmuted. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm David Rubenstein. I'm the ANC Commissioner in 2F01 across the street from Reeves. Excuse me. So a question for both parties is, both parties have interior public space, but is that privately managed, and who is managing those spaces?
For the legacy team, yes, those are privately owned spaces. They'll be managed by our facilities team. We have two separate management companies that'll be at the site. One, Spectrum Management. It's a local management company that'll focus on the office, and Faria Management, which will focus on the residential components. They will be jointly tasked with ensuring that those spaces stay maintained.
Our spaces also will be privately owned. We're going to have an amphitheater, so we will retain a firm that has expertise in providing that type of management for the amphitheater. We don't want it to become a big dead space, so we're going to make sure that it's programmed to provide different music venues, opportunities for local performers. And we want to make sure that we also are thinking about, I know from the last go round, we had a lot of questions about the sound and how we were going to contain the sound. So we've been working with firms that have expertise in managing sound management, but we will make sure that that space is activated and properly managed.
Thank you. We have a request by Andre Denegri. Please correct my pronunciation.
This would be pretty short and sweet, I think. Thank you. So I live, and a couple of my neighbors are here. We live at the Gino Baroni, which sits above the parking garage. I know the biggest concern about them is how they're going to be treated. One keeps the Reeves, the Gino Baroni, the other one does not. How are you going to work with displacement if you're not going to keep it, and how are you going to work with the residents during construction?
So our plan doesn't include the incorporation of Gino Baroni. We've had discussions with residents of Gino Baroni when we were doing our community engagement through the pandemic. We've also spoken with the ownership of Gino Baroni, the Horning brothers, or Horning now. So we definitely understand the concern. As it stands right now, we are not showing Gino Baroni as part of our plan. We would love to continue discussions with the residents and with the ownership of Gino Baroni. We think it would be probably a better project for the residents, because there will be a lot of disruption during construction, but we will be working with the residents hand in hand to make sure we minimize those disruptions as much as we can. Did you have a further question? Yeah, when last summer, 2022, we were out at 14th and U doing community engagement, and many of the residents of Gino Baroni came by and we talked to them And obviously there were different opinions about what the residents wanted to see happen with Gino Baroni, but initially we wanted to incorporate it, but we realized that obviously there's, 35 residents that live there, and we don't want to displace anybody that doesn't want to be displaced. But we would love to continue discussions with the residents if the residents have any interest of ultimately having the Gino Baroni property to be incorporated in the overall redevelopment. So we'd love to sit down and meet with you and talk to you further.
Our plan does not contemplate touching Gino Baroni at the moment. We have not gotten there. I think we would work with you all as we have done on other sites. We are currently under construction at parcel 42, which is at the corner of 7th and Rhode Island. There was some site work that we had to do there. There was a neighbor right next door. We worked hand in hand with that neighbor to ensure that they weren't disturbed. That's a much smaller case, but I don't think the approach is going to be any different in terms of working with a neighbor to ensure that they are impacted or as impacted as minimally as possible. Construction's uncomfortable, so can't tell you that there won't be any inconveniences, but we will work directly with those residents and the owner to ensure that we minimize that as much as possible.
Thank you. Do we have any questions in the Q&A?
We do. Just a quick note, David, if you can lower your hand, I just don't know if you have another comment. And if you do have another comment, you can raise it again. However, Larry Handerhan has 2 questions. Thanks for sending clarification on affordable housing. It would be good to hear from each team how they think about the additional affordability, particularly feasibility in delivering deeply affordable family-sized units. Separately, do the teams have an estimate around job creation from retail, hotel, etc.?
All right, well, thank you. Actually, I'm going to be answering both those questions because we're not at the point in the disposition process, as I said, and I do have to repeat myself, where we have determined the total amount of affordable housing a development program can support or provide, including deeply affordable, above the required 30% at this time. And that also applies to estimates for job creation and estimates for tax revenues. We're just not at that point in the process. As soon as we have those metrics, we will be releasing them. Okay. In person, we have, would David Menny please approach the podium?
Hi, everyone. I guess for those online who maybe didn't hear me blurt out earlier, David Menny, Deputy Chief of Staff and Legislative Director for the Ward 1 Council Member, Brianne Nadeau. I'll just leave it to questions, and I have one for the presenters and actually one for DEMPED if Patrick is able to. So for you all, so of course this is our second go around here. So I'd love to hear you talk about what changed between your last bids and now. The biggest change, I suppose, being that the significant DC government assets on the site are being relocated. So I'd love to know more about like what you were able to do with that without needing to accommodate those uses. And then for DEMPED, it also maybe hasn't been decided yet, but if this is going to be a fee simple transfer, a ground lease, or some combination.
Differences between proposals. Some of that information is proprietary and confidential and can't be shared at this time. And then regarding conveyance, we will be standardly we will be doing a conveyance of a 99-year ground lease unless there is home ownership opportunities. A home ownership opportunity, that portion of the project would be conveyed fee simple. Okay. All right. What? No, I answered that. So the difference is the changes, neither proposal is public. So to discuss details as to what is specifically different about the proposals is not something we can go into at this time. If you would, yeah, I mean, as far as residential use, whether they're proposing different uses now as they were before, yes.
Yeah, no key changes from a uses standpoint. One of the components went from for sale to senior housing, but otherwise no changes from a use perspective.
Our major change was we're not incorporating the Gino Baroni building, so therefore we no longer have the for sale townhomes that we were going to partner with Habitat for Humanity and the Douglas Community Land Trust. We're still hopeful that we can, we're still aspiring to include those based on our discussions with Gino Baroni and the residents and the ownership. But that's the major change. In addition, we were able to identify some other retail and entertainment uses with the Carla Hall Restaurant and the Dave Chappelle Comedy Club, and get more commitments for those uses and other uses. And I forgot, the biggest change was the hotel. So we've added the 160 key hotel. So we heard the community and we added a hotel, and we think it's a great addition to our concept.
Thank you. Mr. Many? Thank you. Online, please.
David, I'm unmuting you now.
Thank you. I just had a follow-up. I had understood that Legacy Community Partners said that they would have place for the farmers market, but was that of the size and scale of the current farmers market? And I know CMC did not mention the farmers market, so I wanted to understand if that was not foreseen in the future for CMC.
For Legacy, we anticipate matching the current scale.
Thank you.
And CMC Venture, we will incorporate the farmers market. We've had several conversations with the leadership of the farmers market when we were out doing our community engagement. So they definitely will be coming back to the Reeves site.
Thank you. Would Commissioner Harris?
Okay, I have a few questions, but I will keep it to 2 minutes. But I do have one question for DIMPED. So the hotel was added as a requirement with the presumption that it will increase daytime traffic. Do you have any data or case studies from other cities to share with the public on this? Okay, I think we'd all really like to see that, if possible, if you can find anything. Okay, thank you. For Legacy, one question, and I'm not sure if you're able to answer this, but senior housing is usually restricted to only seniors. Will there be units for grandparents who are caring for children? And then I have other questions. Oh, okay. I don't know if this was already answered, but are both matter of right developments? And then okay, so then I don't forget.
To be determined on the grandparent housing. It's not a model we've executed in the past, but it's something we're open to. It is a matter of right development.
Our project is also a matter of right.
And then this is more of, I guess, a comment versus a question, although I'll still ask it in form of a question. Would you be willing to, I guess this is for Reeves CMC, to negotiate on the number of parking spaces? I think that has gone up from your original proposal, and the number of housing units has actually gone down.
So the number of housing units went down because we added the hotel, and also because we're no longer including the Gino Baroni apartment building, and we would be willing to negotiate the number of parking spaces.
Thank you, Commissioner. Online?
Santiago asks, to Reeves CMC, can you explain your increase in the number of parking spots from 180 spots in your old proposal to over 300 now? Doesn't this make it more expensive to include more housing?
Well, we originally anticipated only having one level of parking, but now we're including 2 levels of parking, but that won't have any impact on the amount of affordable housing that we'll be providing.
All right, would Krishna Kumar please approach the bench?
All right, thank you. I think I have 2 comments and 2 questions. It might get a little sloppy and a little bit more than that, just warning you. First comment is I want to thank both the development teams. I think you both have done a great job of listening to the community and trying to tailor your stuff there. I know a lot of work has gone into that. I said that before. When you presented this again, I can see that you continue to think about that. So I applaud you. Second is kind of to Patrick and Demped. I'm just curious that after this selection process has occurred, what are the opportunities for the public or the ANC to continue to be part of this process? If you could sort of outline, what that is. We're operating on a very tight time schedule here and trying to solicit the public opinion. And I think that this is going to require more public opinion as it goes forward. So just 2 questions, I think. One, just generally on parking. How many of the parking spaces are going to be open to the public in both of the proposals?
We're still figuring that out. We're still trying to determine how many spaces will be allocated for the housing, for the retail, the arts uses, and then how many will still be available for the public.
Similar for the legacy team. That's to be determined. It's not been finalized yet.
And have you guys have you thought about working with DDOT on getting the curb cuts onto the V Street? Because that may be a little bit of a problem. Has this already come up in your thinking at all?
We've not had any extensive conversations with DDOT at this point, but we recognize from, a number of other developments that we worked on throughout the city that that's going to require coordination. So we're open to it.
Yes, and we'll be working with DDOT also for the curb cuts that are needed.
And just the 2 last questions. So I guess I told you that would be a little bit more for the legacy on the Zora. That's still going to be a fee simple sale. Am I correct in understanding?
The 3 for sale units will be fee simple, and then the remaining units are rental.
Got it.
Yep.
And just for the Reeves team, have you thought about working with USPS and trying to bring them in as a retail partner?
Yes, we have had many discussions with the USPS, and they will also be coming back to our development.
Okay, thank you.
Or to the site. They'll be coming back to the site.
Do we have any further online participants?
Yes. I can get my mouse to work. Theodore, you're being unmuted.
Good evening. Thank you very much for permitting me to make a comment. My name is Theodore McGinn. I am the senior manager of the 14th and U Farmers Market that's been operating outside of the Reeves Center on Saturdays from May through November since 2006. And I'm happy that we're still on the radar of both, plans. I got to say, we really enjoyed the extra effort Legacy put in discovering what we do at the farmers market and how it contributes to the community. Since 2006, we played a vital role in food security in that area of Ward 1. From our inception, we were a gleaning partner for Martha's Table, and we had one of the earliest satellite card reader hookup systems to be able to accept SNAP benefits at a farmer's market in DC. And over the years, that's been one of our most important missions, to make sure the market is accessible and food opportunities are available for everybody. In this past season, I'm working very closely with one of our partners, Fresh Farm Markets. We were able to secure matching grants to match 100% of any food stamp SNAP benefits being spent at the farmers market, which is a huge saver for families and seniors to participate in that program. We also are the 3rd largest recipient of WIX checks at farmers markets here in DC, according to the DC Department of Health and Fresh Farms, who have again been collecting this data as part of their grants. So we'd like to be able to continue in this. We have a great relationship with the seniors at Dunbar. We were able to get a lot of them signed up for the senior supplemental nutrition program checks, for farmers markets, and the Produce Plus program. We're one of the pioneering markets in that as well, providing individuals and families up to $60 a month in fresh fruits and vegetables throughout the growing season. So we're looking forward to partner with whomever. Thank you very much.
Thank you. How many more people online do we have? Apparently, okay, would Mr. Lester Cuffey, please? Currently, Mr. Lester Cuffey is our last in-person. Is there anyone else who would like to speak and make a comment? Just so I am aware. Once we get Mr. Cuffey online, then you'll come up.
Okay. All right. Thank you. My name is Lester M. Cuffey. I'm a board member of the Frank Reeves, the Friends of the Frank Reeves Center. We are a nonprofit organization in good standing with clean hands in the District of Columbia. We submitted an unsolicited proposal to DMPED in March the 10th. We submitted an unsolicited proposal. The Friends of the Frank Reeves, and our mission, our corporate mission, is to ensure that all District of Columbia owned property is developed and maintained to the highest and best use for the District of Columbia residents. As such, in our proposal, redevelopment proposal, and let me keep this in mind, the first RFP did not call for a demolition. Both of the selectees, that was the first initial proposal, didn't call for a demolition of the building. The FROC, or the Friends, our proposal, called for the redevelopment and the as we call it, the redevelopment of the building, the reconfiguration of the existing structure, and we put our cost estimate at $100 million. Okay, we knew the cost for the demolition and relocation of the Office of Traffic and Management Center and the IT and infrastructure. We knew then when we put our proposal together would be an additional $1 million. Okay, so keep in mind, the Friends, we stand in opposition of both selectees because both selectees seek to demolish the building. And the initial proposal, in fact, did not call for the demolition of the Frank Reeves building. Also, let me note for the record that we also believe that the RFP process is flawed. Is initially, we want to note the fact that we believe that DMPED did not comply with the district register and did not comply with the federal register with regard to 30-day notice. I think we need to look at that issue. Also, the final, after 2 years, we recognize the final selectees, Legacy, as well as CMC, both now recognize that it's going to cost a little over $200 million, all right, for the demolition of the building. The question is, where is that $200 million? Where would it come from? Okay, so that's one issue we need to take up into consideration. Where will that $200 million? Who's going to pay? Where's that $200 million going to come from? Will it come from Legacy? Will it come from CMC? Let me also finally say that Black residents, the history and culture in the District of Columbia have been slowly diminishing. Our history and our culture have been slowly diminished from the city landscape. According to the U.S. Census data report, a little over 22,000 residents have left the District of Columbia by way of displacement, gentrification as we call it, as well as the fact that developers come to the community, developers make all of these promises, and many of us already know that the wealth gap in this city has only widened with regard to Black and white residents. So I want you to keep that in mind, all right? Yeah, so with that in mind, I want to also finally say that Mr. Ernest Johnson, the executive director of the Friends, will also be making comments before the city council as well as myself. All right, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Dimper.
To clarify, there is no factual basis for $200 million that we are aware of. for demolition. All right. We've been online.
So just first to Theodore McGinn, again, your hand is raised. I'm not sure if that's a separate question or if it's just being left up, but a question from Renee. Are earlier submitted questions submitted through the website going to be presented? That might require a follow-up.
I'll have to, I was not aware of questions being submitted through the website. There was a Q&A portal that was open for limited duration during the RFP until it was due on January 20th. So I'm not aware of any questions that were submitted.
Renee, if there's other questions that you're talking about, please feel free to enter into the chat for clarification, and we'll discuss.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with their hand raised? Oh, yes. Commissioner Kensick.
So also a question for you both is, how long is this expected to last, the construction? Is it a phased planned, and when is the, how long of the process do you think it'll be? That's my first.
Our project will be developed in one phase. The entire, you're talking about like from selection to completion?
Yes.
That probably would take approximately 40 months, 3.5 years.
I would anticipate about 48 months to get from A to Z.
Another thing you had brought up during your presentation was there's going to be some government agencies still within the Reeves Center. I thought one of you have said, just wanted to see what those agency is, because I know that for some of the people that even for unemployment, that's where they go. It's the hub here versus having to go down south. So that was my next question.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have not determined yet exactly which agencies will be taking up the 50,000 square feet at Reeves. Go. Right. Right. The respondents to the RFP were told to anticipate that we would be, the District of Columbia would be utilizing 50,000 square feet of commercial office space. Yeah.
I love Dave Chappelle, by the way. Patrick brought up a great point. Is the 1B commission going to be able to get copies of both of these slides, just so we can talk amongst ourselves and start looking at it for some of the people that aren't here in person, and actually get to go through and come up with some questions? And I hope that Commissioner Handerhan, who's the co-chair, who is an amazing guy, has been asking for you guys to look for us to give us some time to actually review it. Hope you both are also considering that as well. Thank you. That's all.
Yes, I will be emailing out the slides to the ANC 1B tomorrow after this, and we are always accepting public input. Oh, and the slides will be posted to the project website as well. And we have an online commenter.
Robin, you've been unmuted. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, this is Robin Schuster. I'm the Director of Markets and More that runs the 14th venue and Bloomingdale Farmers Markets. I'm delighted to see that both groups expect the farmers market to return, as do we. So I'm glad to see that even though it was only stated in legacy, that Reeves CMC has committed to that as well. So the question I have, two questions. One is, when will we be able to work with the chosen developer about the specifics of how farmers markets will integrate with the site? We've done quite a bit of that with Legacy, but not so much with CMC. And the second is, when do you imagine that the destruction of the current Reeves Center will take place, making it not possible for the farmers market to be at the sidewalk? From what I saw, it looked like groundbreaking was going to be in summer 2025. Is that still the case?
Yes, we still anticipate groundbreaking and demolition in summer 2025.
So likely that the farmers market will be able to be on site this year, 23, and next year, 24. Am I right in assuming that on the sidewalk?
It's still to be determined. I'm assuming that until we say otherwise, the farmer market's remaining on site.
Great. And when do you think that we will be able to work with the chosen developer on the peculiarities of farmers market sightings?
Once the project is awarded, you're free to contact the developers.
Okay, and when will that be?
We had anticipated doing it within roughly 30 days of January 20th.
Great. We look forward to it very much. Thank you.
Okay. Online? Is there anyone else here in person who would like to make a comment? No? Online?
Renee has a follow-up. Thank you. What is the selection process for retail businesses? How involved, if at all, is the immediate community in the selection process? What does that timeline look like?
That's a question for the developers.
So our resale plan has been crafted by our ideals and feedback that we've gotten from the community. I think a big thing is going to be ensuring that we have a feasible retail plan that we can pay for. So yes, input, there's going to be room for input, but we also have to ensure that our goals are aligned in terms of ensuring that we actually have users at the site that can make the site work.
Just say ditto to that. Our retail plan is the same. I mean, we have been in discussions with the community, but we have to make sure that the uses work and that the economics of the retail plan works.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Robin's hand is still raised, so I'm just going to unmute you do you have anything further? Nope.
No, sorry. I forgot to take it down. Thank you.
And that is it for our online comments or questions.
Well, in that case, I would like to thank you all for attending, as this concludes the public disposition hearing for the proposed use of the property at 2014 Street Northwest, also known as the Frank D. Reeves Center of Municipal Affairs. The time is now 7:52. Thank you, and everyone have a wonderful evening.